In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the rear brake calipers on this Ford Escape. These are located behind your rear wheels. Let's get started. Use a 19mm socket, remove all 5 lug nuts, and then pull the wheel off. From the back side of the caliper, you can see where the parking brake cable goes through this lever. We have to push on this lever. I'm using a pry bar. It is spring loaded, and just be careful that your pry bar doesn't slip. And once you press it in enough, you can slip the cable out of it. Now my parking brake lever and the pivot area here is actually seized, so I'm going to pry it back gently so that the cable doesn't hook back in. But for you, it should spring right back into place. With this unhooked, we can then take the cable out of the caliper where it mounts up here. To take the cable out of the bracket on the caliper that it goes through, all you have to do is just wiggle it and pull on it. Set that aside. From the front side, you'll see this spring clip here that goes around the bracket and hooks into the caliper with a pry bar. Take it out, just have a hand in front of it so it doesn't go flying. There's one side. There it is. Sometimes these get fairly stuck in there from corrosion. Set this aside. From the back side of the caliper, you'll see where the 2 slider pins thread in, and what we have to do is, with a little screwdriver or pry bar, pop these 2 caps off so we can actually access them. Then you'll use a 7mm Allen socket to remove both of these. They shouldn't be very tight. Sometimes they get seized in here, and just make sure that your socket is fully seated into the slider pin so it doesn't round off. You'll see it unthreading from the bracket over here, and once it reaches the end, it'll actually just spin without unthreading anymore. That's how you know it's fully off of the threads, which is right about here. We'll do the same to the top one. Once you have them unthreaded, take your tool out, and to make things easier, I like to just push them through a little bit with a pry bar. That way they don't get hooked back onto the threads once we pull the caliper off. Now grab the caliper and pull it straight off of the rotor and the pads. Sometimes this is a little bit stuck in here. Make sure it's not the slider pins that are causing it to be stuck. If that is the case, simply pry them out a little bit more. And if that's not the case, it's probably just stuck here from rust and debris. So use a pry bar and gently pry it off. Let's separate the brake hose from the caliper. To do this, because it's floating around, I'm going to use a pry bar to basically hold it in place, and then a 14mm wrench on the brake hose so I can break this free and separate the two. Alright, once this is broken free, we'll actually have to spin the caliper off of the hose. Have a collection bucket underneath ready to catch the brake fluid that's about to drip out. Okay, there it is. Let that caliper drain. Now take your brake hose, line it up with the caliper, and thread this on. This is going to be a little tricky because you're going to have to get the threads lined up in order to start this on. Oh, looks like I got it. So just spin this until it bottoms out. Take your 14mm wrench, snug this up. Do the best you can. I'm not going to put a pry bar on it, not only because I don't want to damage the new caliper, I also don't want to over tighten this fitting. This just needs to get snugged up a little. Perfect. That was about 1/8 to 1/4 turn after it bottomed out, and it looks like when I try to spin it around, it is almost perfectly lined up here. Now I could adjust the hose on the other end, but in my case, if I just give it a little extra, That's good right there. Rinse the area off with brake parts cleaner. Now let's remove the caliper bracket so we can finish replacing the caliper. I'm going to remove these pads, set them aside. Now if yours are in good condition, of course reuse them. I actually will be installing new brakes on this just because of their condition, but regardless, save your pads. Now use a 13mm socket and there will be 2 bolts holding this caliper bracket onto the knuckle. Remove both. Break them free. And take them off the rest of the way. Take the bracket right off. Grab your new caliper bracket, slide it over the knuckle, and of course over the rotor, and thread on the 2 bolts that secure it to the knuckle. Make sure they start on smoothly. We'll bottom them out and torque them to 46 foot-pounds. Now install your pads. The one that has the little spring clip attached to it goes on the inside. The one which has just a flat tab that sticks out goes on the outer part. Before the caliper gets reattached, I like to lubricate these slider pins. Now you can't really put anything on the pin itself. There's little lines in there built into the rubber that actually stop the grease. So what you have to do is take a brush with some silicone paste that's rated for brakes or brake grease and put it inside of the boot and then slide the pin through. This will likely push out some of the grease, so wipe it off, make it flush. We'll do the same to the top one. Now take your caliper, slide it over the pads and the bracket, line up the slider pins, hold it in position, and get these started. I got this one started, so let's start the lower one. That way it can be mostly secured and lined up. Then we'll bottom them out. .21 foot-pounds is the torque for both of these slider pins. Cap these off. I put a little bit of anti-seize inside these mounting holes for the spring on the outside just so it is less likely to get stuck in there in the future. What I like to do is start on the top like this. Once you hook that side on, make sure it's fully seated. You bring it down and you start the lower side. Hold that in position and then just guide this over. There we go. Make sure that's fully seated, and this secures your caliper on the outside. Let's get the parking brake cable reattached. Bend it down so it can go right through this opening, then slide it all the way in. What we have to do now is move the cable out of the way and then push this lever in, and this will snap the cable right back into its spot. Just like that. Perfect. Now remove the bleeder screw cap, and with an 11mm wrench, open up the brake bleeder. We're going to do what's called a gravity bleed, so we'll let gravity pull the fluid down into the caliper and push all of the air out. The gravity bleed should take care of most, if not all, of the air that's in the system. However, you may still need to do a full manual brake bleed, which you'll see how to do at the end of the video, but for now, let's wait for a steady, clean trickle of fluid with no air bubbles so we can finish our gravity bleed. We have a steady trickle of fluid out of the bleeder screw, so I'm going to close this off. Snug it. Rinse it off with brake parts cleaner. Stick the straw right in it. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 5 lug nuts. We'll bottom them out in a cross pattern, and then also in a cross pattern, torque them to 100 foot-pounds. Once again, 100 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Double check them. Under the hood, towards the driver's side, attached to the cowl, you'll see your brake master cylinder reservoir. Remove the cap. Looking closely at it, it'll say to only use .4 brake fluid. I have .3 and 4. It's compatible for both, so that's what I'm going to use. When doing a full manual brake bleed, I like to remove all of the old fluid that's in the reservoir so I can start with fresh fluid. Use whatever tool you have that'll remove the fluid. I'm using a fluid extractor, and I'm going to do my best. You're never going to get 100% of it out, but just take as much out as you can. All right, I got as much out as I can, so I'm going to set this aside. Now I'm going to use my .3 and 4 brake fluid to fill this up. The max line is right here on the side, so fill it up until it reaches that. Cap this off. To bleed these brakes on this vehicle, the sequence is starting at the right rear wheel, bleed that caliper, and then move to the left rear. After you do those two, you're going to want to top off the master cylinder, then move to the right front, that's the passenger side front, and finish up at the left front, that's the driver's side front. Now after this, if you feel that there's still air stuck in the system, repeat the procedure in the same sequence. Now we're at the right rear caliper. I have an assistant in the vehicle to help me pump up the brake pedal and create pressure. I also have a collection receptacle with a hose here. I'm going to pop off the bleeder screw cap, and for this one you'll need an 11mm wrench. Go ahead and pump the brakes. All right, they're holding pressure, so I'm going to crack this open. I hit the floor, so I'm going to close this off. Go ahead and pump again. We're going to do this until we have clean brake fluid with no air bubbles coming out of this bleeder screw. Okay. All right, you can let go of the brake pedal now. Take this off of here, and if you spilt any brake fluid, go ahead and clean it off. And of course, cap the bleeder screw so it doesn't get clogged up. Now move to the left rear and do the same to bleed that caliper, and then of course top off the master cylinder. Now top off the master cylinder all the way up to the max line, and then cap it off. Our master cylinder is topped off, and we are now at the right front caliper. We'll do the same thing, except this one takes a 10mm wrench instead of an 11. Pop the bleeder screw cap off. I'm going to connect my hose. Go ahead and pump, please. All right, go again. All right, you can let go now. Got good brake fluid coming out of here. Let's wipe off anything that may have spilt. I'm going to use some brake parts cleaner to rinse it. Cap it off, and we'll do the same exact thing on the left front to finish up our brake bleed. Top off the master cylinder one last time, cap it off, put all the wheels on. The torque is 100 foot-pounds, and take it for a road test. There you have it, take it for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.